What's going on today, YouTube? Rob here. In today's video, I've got the final deck from the Legendary Hero deck box, and that is Nordic's / Asier. This deck is actually pretty cool, and we're getting some more TCG support later on in the year. So maybe I'll take some of that support and add on to this deck to make it a little bit more of a competitive version. But for now, this is what I have, and it's pretty cool. Before we get started, I just want to say if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and also turning on that notification bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. And don't forget to leave a like and a comment on what you might want to see next. Without wasting any more of your time, let's get into it. Alright guys, let's get into this Nordic deck profile. Bear with me on the pronunciation of some of the names here. I guarantee you I will get them wrong. So first up we have Tang Grisner of the Nordic Beasts. If this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, special summon 2 Nordic Beast tokens. Beast Earth level 3, attack 0, defense 0. Next up we have Tang Joester of the Nordic Beasts. When a monster you control is destroyed by battle and sent to your graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. Once per turn, when this defense position card on the field is changed to face-up attack position, you can special summon 1 Nordic Beast monster from your deck in defense position except this card. Next up, we have Double Garmer of the Nordic Beasts. If this card battles a level 4 or lower monster, after damage calculation, you can return that monster to the hand. Next up, we have Double Goldfax of the Nordic Beasts. If your opponent controls a synchro monster and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. Next up, we have Diverg of the Nordic Alfar. After you normal summon this card, you can normal summon 1 Nordic monster during your main phase this turn in addition to your normal summon or set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. And if this face-up card on the field is sent to the graveyard, target 1 Nordic Relic card from your graveyard and add that target to your hand. Next up, we have Double Josulf or Losulf of the Nordic Alfar. When this card is normal summoned, you can target 1 face-up monster you control except this card, and special summon 1 Nordic monster from your hand with a level less than or equal to that face-up monster's level. Next up we have Svartalf of the Nordic Alfar. When this card is normal summoned, you can target 1 Nordic monster in your graveyard and add that target to your hand. Then we have 1 copy of Mara, the Nordic Alfar. When using this card as synchro material, the other synchro materials must be 2 Nordic monsters in your hand. Next up we have Mimer of the Nordic Ascendant. Once per turn, at the start of the standby phase, if you control a Nordic monster and this card is in your graveyard, you can send 1 spell from your hand to the graveyard and special summon this card. Next up, we have 1 copy of Valkyrie of the Nordic Ascendant. This card is not treated as a Valkyrie card. And when this card is normal summoned, if your opponent controls a monster and you control no other cards, you can banish 2 Nordic monsters from your hand and special summon 2 Einherjar tokens, Warrior Earth level 4, attack 1000, defense 1000 in defense position. Next up we have Venadis of the Nordic Ascendant. For a synchro summon, you can substitute this card for any 1 Nordic tuner. And if this card is used as synchro material, all other synchro materials must be Nordic monsters. Once per turn, you can send one Nordic monster from your deck to the graveyard, and this card's level becomes the level of that monster until the end of this turn. And lastly, we have one copy of Tier of the Nordic Champions. Your opponent's monsters cannot target Nordic monsters for attacks except this card, and if there are no other Nordic monsters on the field, destroy this card. That's it for our monsters. Let's move on to the spells, starting with Dark Hole. This lets you destroy all monsters on the field. Next up, we have the Nordic Lights. Nordic monsters on the field cannot be destroyed by battle, and if this card on the field is destroyed, destroy all Nordic monsters on the field. Then we have double copies of Nordic Relic Drapnir. Equip only to an Asier or Nordic monster. It gains 800 attack. If this face-up card on the field is destroyed by card effect, you can add one Nordic Relic card from your deck to your hand. Next up, we have March Towards Ragnarok. This lets you target one Asier monster you control, and until the end of this turn, its effects are negated. Also, that face-up monster is unaffected by effects of other spell and traps. Next up, we have Forbidden Chalice. This lets you target one face-up monster on the field, and until the end of this turn, that target gains 400 attack, but its effects are negated. Then we have one copy of Forbidden Lance. This lets you target one face-up on the field, and until the end of this turn, that target loses 800 attack, but is unaffected by the effects of other spell and traps. Then we have Forbidden Dress. This lets you target one face-up monster on the field, and until the end of this turn, that target loses 600 attack, but cannot be targeted or destroyed by other card effects. Then we have one copy of Monster Reborn to let you target one monster in either player's graveyard and special summon it. Then we have one copy of Soul Charge. This lets you target any number of monsters in your graveyard and special summon them, and if you do, you lose 1,000 life points for each monster special summoned by this effect. You also cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this card, and you can only activate one copy of Soul Charge per turn. Then we have Hey Trunade, which returns all set spell and traps on the field to the hand. And lastly, for our spell cards, we have Mystical Space Typhoon, which lets you target one spell or trap on the field and destroy that target. Moving on from our spells, we are now starting with our traps, starting with double copies of Gleipnir, the Fetters of Fenrir. This lets you add one Nordic monster from your deck to your hand. Then we have double copies of Nordic Relic Brisingamen. This lets you target one face-up monster you control and one face-up monster your opponent controls. The attack of the first target becomes equal to the original attack of the second target until the end of this turn. Next up, we have double copies of Nordic Relic Liventinen, or Livatane. This lets you target one face-up monster on the field, and that target one face-up monster on the field that destroyed a monster by battle this turn and destroy it. Cards and effects cannot be activated in response to this card's activation. And then we have double copies of Nordic Relic Gungnir. This lets you banish one Asier or Nordic monster that you control, then target one card on the field and destroy it. Also, during the second end phase after activation, return the monster you banished to activate this effect to the field in face-up attack position. And then we have one copy of Nordic Relic Megingord. This lets you target one Asier or Nordic monster you control, and its attack and defense become double its original attack and defense until the end of this turn, but it cannot attack your opponent directly. And lastly, for our traps, we have Solemn Authority. You can activate this card by targeting one Asier monster you control. It cannot be targeted by other card effects while this card is on the field, and send this card to the graveyard during your second standby phase after activation. And that's it for our main deck. Let's move on to our extra deck. Starting off, our one and only Link monster, we have Gulvig of the Nordic Ascendant. This requires one level 5 or lower Nordic monster. And if this card is Link summoned, you can banish up to 3 cards from your hand and or field, and if you do, special summon that many Nordic monsters from your deck in defense position. Also, for the rest of this turn, you cannot special summon monsters except Asier monsters or nor normal summon set any monsters. You can only use this effect of Gulvig of the Nordic Ascendants once per turn, and while this card points to an Asier monster, your opponent cannot target that monster with card effects. Also, monsters your opponent controls cannot target this card for attacks. Next up, starting off our synchros, we have Ascension Sky Dragon. This requires one tuner and 1 plus non-tuner monsters. If this card is synchro summoned, it gains 800 attack for each card currently in your hand. And when this card you control is destroyed by battle or by your opponent's card effect and sent to your graveyard, if all the monsters that were used for synchro or to synchro summon this card are in your graveyard, you can special summon all of them, but their effects are negated, and you can only use this effect of Ascension Sky Dragon once per turn. Next up, we have one copy of Coral Dragon, which requires one tuner and 1 plus non-tuner monster, or monsters. Once per turn, you can discard one card, then target one card your opponent controls and destroy it. If the synchro summoned card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can draw one card. And you can only use this effect of Coral Dragon once per turn. Next up, we have one copy of Scrap Dragon, which requires one tuner and 1 plus non-tuner monsters. Once per turn, you can target one card you control and one card your opponent controls and destroy them. When this card in your possession is destroyed by your opponent's card and sent to the graveyard, target one non-synchro scrap monster in your graveyard and special summon that target. Next up, we have one copy of Beals of the Diabolic Dragons. This requires one Dark Tuner and 1 plus non-tuner monsters, cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, and if you take damage from an attack involving this card, or from an opponent's card effect, this card gains attack equal to the damage you took. Next up, we have Beelzeus of the Diabolic Dragons, which requires one Dark Tuner plus 2 plus non-tuner monsters, and cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, and other monsters you control cannot attack. Once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controls, and any battle damage your opponent takes from attacks involving this card this turn is halved. Also change that monster's attack to 0, and if you do, gain life points equal to its original attack. Next up, we have Leo, the Keeper of the Sacred Tree. This requires 1 tuner plus 1 plus non-tuner monsters, and your opponent cannot target this card with card effects except during your main phase 2. And next up, we have Odin, Father of the Asier. This requires 1 Nordic Ascendant tuner plus 2 plus non-tuner monsters. Once per turn, you can make this card be unaffected by spell or trap effects until the end of this turn, and also once per turn during the end phase, if this face-up card you controlled was destroyed by your opponent's card and sent to your graveyard this turn, you can banish 1 Nordic Ascendant tuner from your graveyard and special summon this card. When summoned this way, you can draw 1 card. Then we have 1 copy of Loki, Lord of the Aesir. This requires 1 Nordic Alfar tuner plus 2 plus non-tuner monsters. Once per turn, when your opponent activates a spell or trap card during your battle phase, quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Once per turn, during the end phase, if this face-up card you control was destroyed by your opponent's card and sent to your graveyard this turn, you can banish 1 Nordic Alfar tuner from your graveyard and special summon this card. When summoned this way, you can target 1 trap in your graveyard and add that target to your hand. And lastly, for our extra deck and this Asier / Nordic deck, we have Thor, Lord of the Aesir. This requires 1 Nordic Beast tuner plus 2 plus non-tuner monsters. Once per turn, you can negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls until the end of this turn. And once per turn, during the end phase, if this face-up card you controlled was destroyed by your opponent's card and sent to your graveyard this turn, you can banish 1 Nordic Beast tuner from your graveyard and special summon this card. And if summoned this way, inflict 800 damage to your opponent. Alright guys, that's it for our Legendary Hero Decks deck box. We have now finished the Nordic deck, the Hero deck, which was pure Destiny Heroes, and we also had a Phantom Knights deck. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, be sure to leave a like, also be sure to comment, and consider subscribing and helping out the channel. I am planning on doing a 100 video box opening, and that'll just be with the 2021 Tin of Ancient Battles, so stay tuned for that. And as always, I will see you in the next one. That's game.